Peter here, aka Peter Freakout Turn, bringing you guys our episode of the Movie Review Show, where the good movies are always reviewed. Okay, back into our movie review. Now, on today's episode, before I start, I just want to say, this is actually a review I was planning on doing for Christmas. Unfortunately, as you guys know, I never got around to it because I was so busy with the Rocky films. I honestly thought I was going to get those done in the nick of time, but unfortunately never got to that, so pretty much put those films off to the side. Well, put this film off to the side, I should say, and pretty much finished up those. Rambo, though, I managed to do because I was going to do that as a Christmas review. Unfortunately, this one I didn't get to, so I decided, you know what, make it a New Year's review. So I did that. Unfortunately, that plan fell through too because I was going to parties, and New Year's flew by so fast that I was sort of like, you know what, I'll make this an after New Year's special. But you know what happened after that? As you guys know, I got sick. So I had to take a couple of days off, so I was sort of like, you know what, I'll review this now and get it over with. So finally getting to it now. But before we actually talk about what the film is, let's go back into the realm of Eddie Murphy. I already talked about his first film, 48 Hours, which is an undeniable classic. After reviewing that film, I want to watch more of it. It's just one of those films that remains funny after the first time you see it. All the jokes hit. It's never a dull movie. It never becomes this sort of film that you just forget about after you've watched it. The jokes always hit. There's never a tiresome gag. It's a comedy that hits all the right notes on the PC scale. It's just a movie that is so funny. Him and Nick Nolte have great scenes together. The racist humor is so funny that it always hits home too. And the action scenes are fantastically directed by Walter Hill. It's just a great film. If you have not seen 48 Hours, I definitely recommend you check it out. Or if you guys want to see more of my thoughts on why I love that film, definitely go back and see my review. So now we're talking about the next film he did, Trading Places. Now, Trading Places is a film made back in 1983, and this is directed by John Landis. Now, John Landis has become a big name in the movie industry because he directed before this Animal House, which is one of the greatest comedies ever made. I already reviewed that movie. He directed The Blues Brothers, a classic, also starring Dan Aykroyd, An American Werewolf in London, which I already reviewed, The Three Amigos. He would work with Eddie Murphy again on Coming to America. He also did Spies Like Us, another film with Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase. He would work with Eddie Murphy again on Beverly Hills Cop 3 and Oscar with Sylvester Stallone. But the idea for this film came about when writer Timothy Harris was at a tennis match with a group of twin brothers who were fighting over the game, and they were experiencing a sibling rivalry. And apparently this wasn't the only fight he went through with the two, and he looked at this fight as nature against nature. So he decided to incorporate that sort of nature of the argument into a script. And he wrote the script and he shopped it around until it landed in the hands of Paramount, where it was originally meant to be in the hands of Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. Sadly, that didn't go through because Richard dropped out because he was going through his drug addiction, and Eddie, who had just experienced a big box office return thanks to the success of 48 Hours, they decided to go with him. And at the same time, they decided it would be a great idea to get Gene Wilder replaced because Eddie did not want to give off that he was trying to be another Pryor. And by then, they also brought in John Landis to direct, who had just finished directing two hits from the 80s from different genres, The Blues Brothers, as I mentioned before, and, of course, American Werewolf in London. He wasn't doing much around the time. He was mostly doing a documentary and had very quick roles in movies. And as they went along, Landis decided to bring in Dan Aykroyd, who he previously worked with on the Blues Brothers. And despite coming on, he didn't know who Eddie Murphy was, having never seen 48 Hours, and he was unaware of the hit that movie was. It was unknown if he actually sat down and watched the movie, but nevertheless, they got to work on the film and shot in various spots in Philadelphia. At one point, you can actually see the Rocky III statue, or the Rocky statue in general. But it lasted from December of 1982 to March of 1983. And the movie had a budget of $15 million, and it had a June release of 1983. It opened to number 3 at the box office behind Return of the Jedi and Superman 3 with a total of $7 million in its opening weekend, where it stayed there in its second week, and it went on to finish its run with a total of $90 million, outgrossing his previous outing, 48 Hours. And made its way to the 4th highest grossing film of 1983 behind Flashdance, Terms of Endearment, and Return of the Jedi. The movie was also a critical hit, earning an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.5 on IMDb. Roger Ebert, much like his last review, 48 Hours, rated the film 3.5 stars out of 4, praising the chemistry between Aykroyd and Murphy, and praising the fact that the film rose... Hold on, my nose is itching, but he also praised the fact that the film rose their characters above the usual stereotypes we were seeing in comedy similar to this nature, and the film's energy. Time magazine gave the film an extremely positive review, says it's one of the most emotionally satisfying and gratifying comedies of all time. The film would also go on to be nominated for various awards and has continued to be regarded as one of the greatest comedies of all time. Now, I've heard about this film from my cousin who recommended it to me along with Beverly Hills Cop and Coming to America, like many other films. But I heard from some people that it's watchable, though a little overhyped. And that worried me, but I still wanted to give it a try. And I was actually going to do this review after the Rocky review so I could enjoy Christmas, but as you guys know why. I actually watched this on Christmas Eve, and I actually watched this with my family too. I gotta mention that, but we all watched it together, and I gotta admit, I liked it. This film is hilarious. I really don't know what is so overhyped about this. I disagree with that. I think the people are right. I do think the people are right. I think there's many other movies that are more overhyped than this. Is it my favorite Eddie Murphy film? Well, you're going to have to get back to me on that, seeing as how I want to watch the rest of them and compare them. But I still thought this was a funny movie, and definitely can get why so many people like this film. But in order to talk about this film, we got to go through the bases. But with the cast, as I said, you got Eddie Murphy as Billy Ray Valentine in this movie, who was, of course, from SNL, 48 Hours. And the next year, he would go on to be his biggest achievement, Beverly Hills Cop. You have Jamie Lee Curtis here from Halloween, Prom Night, Terror Train, and Mind Girl. And when casting her, they were actually pretty worried about casting her, seeing as how she was involved in no other movie besides horror, which I think this would prove them wrong, and she would actually go on to be in My Girl, which, yeah, I like that film. Dan Aykroyd's also in this, as I said, another actor from SNL. He would be in Ghostbusters 1 and 2. Actually, I think this was I forget, is this the same year as Ghostbusters or the year after? Let me check. Yeah, the year after. He would go on to be in Ghostbusters. He would also be in My Girl 1 and 2, which is funny because him and Jamie Lee Curtis have a chemistry in this film, and they do in My Girl 1 and 2, where they become husband and wife. Nothing But Trouble he was also in, which I love. I know a lot of people hate that film. Coneheads, The Great Outdoors, and 50 First Dates, which I already reviewed. You also have Don Amici from Cocoon, Homeward Bound, and he would have a little appearance in Coming to America as the same character. They're in this film. Ralph Bellamy from Rosemary's Baby, Pretty Woman, and The Awful Truth. Denholm Elliott, may he rest in peace, from Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Toy Soldiers, and Watership Down. You also have a few cameos. You got Paul Gleason from Van Wilder, not another teen movie in The Breakfast Club. You have John Belushi's brother, Jim, from K9, TV's According to Jim, The Principal, Curly Sue, and The Pebble and the Penguin. Al Franken from SNL, Stewart Saves His Family, in TV's Late Line. Frank Oz from the Star Wars movies, House Sitter, The Blues Brothers, and he would work with John Landis again on Spies Like Us. And even Bill Cobbs from Air Bud, The People Under the Stairs, Demolition Man, and even New Jack City. So a lot of people who were involved in this film were on SNL, were going to be part of the government, and or have already become household names, or have already been household names, I should say. And they all do well, but I'll get into why later. But the basic plot of this film is basically this. We meet this guy named Louis Withrop III, played by Dan Aykroyd, who is a wealthy managing director in the stock market who has it all. He has a respected position, he's about to be engaged, and he lives in a nice house with a butler named Coleman, played by Denholm Elliott. Meanwhile, we also meet Billy Ray Valentine, played by Eddie Murphy, who is the opposite of Lewis, because he's homeless, he makes his living begging for money on the street, he ends up in jail when the two meet, when an altercation happens, when Billy ends up trying to help him reclaim his suitcase, and he exaggerates the situation to the point where he thinks he's being robbed, which leads to a chase, and he chases him into the boardroom where the two brothers who own the company witness this, and this gives them an idea to conduct an experiment, all the while having a bet between the two for $1. And that experience is to place Billy in the environment that Lewis at the moment is comfortable in, and to place Lewis in the environment that Billy is thriving in. And that experiment kicks off when the two end up framing him by planting a wad of cash in his pocket and claiming he stole it and kick him out of the company. Meanwhile, they get Billy out of jail and give him the spot that Lewis is in, and they give him his mansion and his wealth and a spot on the boardroom. Lewis, however, has his life crumbled more to pieces when he finds out they planted drugs on him. He gets beat up in his cell, and he gets his engagement room with his soon-to-be wife by bribing another woman named Ophelia, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, to stage an act that the two were involved in an affair. They cancel his bank account and credit card, and he gets kicked out of his home. Ophelia, though, agrees to give him a place to stay until he can figure out what's going on, and shows him what it's like to live in an environment that she does. This, however, drives him insane when he finds out that Billy has now taken the position and decides to hatch a plan to get back at him. All the while, Billy finds out about the brothers' plan and decides that he must tell him about their plan. Will Billy be able to calm Lewis down and make him help take the brothers down, or will Lewis do something he'll regret? Trading Places is a really funny movie. It's one of those films that's smarter than how the movie is advertised, because whenever I watch the trailers to this film or the TV spots, they made the film out like it's going to be some sort of ordinary slapstick comedy that's about some guy who's down on the ladder who becomes rich, like that sort of Princess Diaries, or I don't want to say Mr. Deeds because I like that movie. Princess Diary 2, I should say. That sort of film. And I think it works best here because it's not doing that whole angle. There's actually a reason as to why this is going on. As I mentioned earlier with the nature versus nature thing, incorporating it into this angle. Because there really is this sort of feel to it, like, what's the word I'm looking for? The social experiment angle with these two guys, basically one thriving and the other, basically being happy in this environment. It really feels like we're really watching a social experiment. That's the best way I could say it, because they're really realistic, and I think that it works because you're laughing at the fact that the sad thing is rich people do act like that. Rich people do kind of have this stuck-up attitude about being in this sort of environment that Billy was in, and it's done with a message such that these characters are having these realistic reactions, being in the places that they are. And I like the fact that with the Aykroyd's character, he never becomes like, oh, I gotta change. I gotta be all like, yeah, I gotta love the environment. He remains the same person. I know one person said Aykroyd felt unlikable. I disagree. I think that's what they were going for, and I still didn't feel the need to hate the character because I felt like his unlikability came off more of the fact that he was confused rather than being unlikable for the sake of being unlikable. I will say, though, towards the end, when he does find out what's going on, he does redeem himself, and while he's thriving in that environment, Murphy is happy in the position that he's in, and still maintains a sense of likability and gratefulness where he is now, and actually holds the responsibility mantle that Lewis had very well. And you see him doing well with that. And I like that angle of showing like a rich guy can't survive in a poor environment, but it feels like a homeless person does have an understanding of the environment despite how Eddie acts in the film. And I think it works well for what it has to do. And the film is shot really well. It isn't a big and fancy pretty picture show like Blues Brothers or American Werewolf in London. It's not like that sort of shooting. It's definitely more of a serious sort of angle, like low down, like here and there sort of angle. But it's shot pretty well. It fits the tone well, and definitely does its job. But moving on, the acting in the film is definitely well done. Dan Aykroyd always a riot to watch, and here he's no exception. I think he does a great job playing this stuck-up rich guy who has it all, but when this incident happens, you see him confused, angry, and trying to adjust to the life of living like Ophelia, and it's just really driving him more and more insane. You feel bad, but at the same time, you're laughing because it's reasonable why he's acted like this, and he's not only confused as to why this is happening, and he's seeing this guy take his place, like the one scene with him in the Santa suit, and he literally pulls out a gun in the place trying to frame him, and you see at the party he took like the piece of meat and he's literally like eating it on the bus. It's like it's showing how much he's like, I'm done with this life. I really want to get out of here. I really just love that with him. Even the part where he's dressed as the Jamaican at the end, I thought that was funny. Just Aykroyd does a great job. I think he does a great job playing the snobby sort of guy. Really, while unlikable, I think the unlikability works with him, as I mentioned earlier. It's never done to the point where you absolutely hate him, and he does it really well. So Dan Aykroyd, I think, does a great job. But of course, the crowning star is, of course, Eddie as Billy Ray Valentine, who is so much dang fun. At the beginning, you see him as this homeless guy pretending to be a war vet who got his legs blown off, and he ends up being sent to jail. I just love how he's not only confused about, like, oh my god, I'm in this big rich house, but they're trying to prove to him, like, oh, he's rich, and he's breaking all the vases, and he's like, it was yours, you could do whatever you want. Or the part where he's at the party, like, who left the cigarette butt on the floor? Eddie is always a blast to watch. And here he's relying more on himself to make the film funny, whereas the last time it was more about him and Nolte's relationship, seeing as how it was a buddy cop film. Here, though, Eddie is solo, and it's really funny, and he really keeps the film's energy up. And it's definitely not a buddy film. Aykroyd and him aren't really on screen together. They're in like the first or half, but towards the end. But they do have their equal moments together. The film jumps back and forth between the two. It's not all the attention is devoted to Murphy. And I do disagree with one person who felt like the film was less about the two together. I felt like towards the end, it was reasonable to have the two together, and I felt as though like it never felt like the two are never going to get together, because I knew they were going to get together. It's just a matter of when, and I think people wanted to see more of the two together, but I felt like it was enough. I definitely felt like there was enough devoted to the two, and they did well together. I love how when he wakes up, like, because he passes out, and he's like, I had a dream that some black guy took my place, and he sees the guy, and he tries to choke him, and, like, the two just went off each other so well with this film. Then you get Jamie Lee Curtis, who I also think does a great job. Her introduction, though, is one that I'll never forget after I saw this film. It's so abrupt, it's so funny. She's just literally walking in a police station, talking with her friends, and one of the people who works with the brothers pulls her to the side and tells her to stage the affair for money. Imagine being a woman in a police station, talking with your friends, and one of the people who works with the people works with a particular person, I should say, pulls you to the side and tells you to stage an affair. That would certainly help any woman who's in the unemployed rate. But I thought she did well. Her character's more of a motivator for Lewis to be comfortable with the environment he's currently in, and get the idea she has the hots for him, because you get moments of her taking off her top, you see her tits, or laying with Lewis in bed, which I found out of nowhere. But for what she had to do, I thought she did fine. Even though their romance is out of nowhere, and I'm like, would this be okay today? Would some men just accept, like, okay, come into bed with me, kiss me, whatnot? But yeah, I do admit she is hot, and definitely I like the wig she wears in this film. Definitely think that goes well with her. I also like the part where she dresses up as the Swedish woman with that accent. It's so weird, yet it's so funny, but I thought she did it well. I thought it was a good breakaway from horror. Then you get the villains, played by Ralph Bellamy and Don Amici, who I think the two did a great job. They're not really villains. They're just more brothers who are just involved in a bed, and they just are going on this back and forth tirade with each other. And you see them bickering back and forth on everything from the bed to how they're doing. And it really makes the two stand out from any other villains, because they're not villains like the 48 Hours villains. They're just stuck-up businessmen, and they're a lot of fun just watching the two go back and forth with each other, and especially at the end when the two take them down, and one of them has a heart attack, and the other one's so mad, he's pretty much like, I don't care, because one of the guys is like, I think your brother's having a heart attack. He's like, F him! I was like, what? I literally never saw that coming. That might rank as one of the funniest lines I ever heard in a movie. But there is not one bad actor who does a bad job at this movie. Everybody does what they're supposed to. They all do their parts really well. It's just all around a dang funny film with a lot of heart to it. I also like the tone to it. I like the tone. I think it does it really well. I think it adds to the social experiment angle very well. I thought there was a piece of plastic on there. But I think it adds to the tone well. I think the two really play off each other well. If there was one complaint I could say about the film, I would say one person did bring this up, and I do agree with them. It's definitely the final. I felt it really focused on one particular angle, and I felt it was in an area I never felt that was interesting, because it's the stock market, and to use that as the final to your movie, it's really confusing, especially when you don't know much about the stock market. Like, Do you think anybody watching this gives a heck about the stock market? Like, yay, we're gonna use the stock market as the final! Yay! Like, I certainly was. I just left there scratching my head and looking at my watch like, really? This is the final? How about, like, acting like it's a robbery and steal the money? Like, he talks about making them poor. So why doesn't he just stage a robbery to basically, like, get the money or something from them? Or why not expose them for how corrupt they are? You'll still be getting the money. I don't know why they went with the angle here. Granted, it's not badly done. It's just an angle that I feel nobody's interested in talking about, because nobody gives a heck about the stock market, especially with an Eddie Murphy movie. So that was one of the complaints that I had watching the film. I felt it was unnecessary. It really could have done something more with its climax. But other than that, Trading Places is a hilarious film. And it's one of the most unique comedies I've seen. It's definitely one of the most unique ideas for a comedy. And if you haven't seen this film, I highly recommend you check it out. This is a great comedy. One that should be seen once by at least everybody. It's definitely one I'm going to watch every Christmas. Really glad I got introduced to this by my cousin. It's definitely one that I'll take out and watch every Christmas, or even out of pure enjoyment. Again, I don't know if it's my favorite Eddie Murphy film, so I do admit 48 Hours and this are on the same level, but let's see as we go along. But when it comes to rating this film, I give it a 9.7 out of 10. It deserves it, and therefore gets my seal of approval. If you have not seen Trading Places, definitely recommend this film. Definitely recommend you check it out. But that's my review on Trading Places, and next time I'm going to go back to video game reviews in a particular order, like movie, video game, and the next review, I'm finally going to review this game, Red Dead Revolver. I'm going to finally talk about this game. I've been wanting to talk about it for a while. This game has been on my radar to review for quite some time. Now I'm finally going to talk about it. Had it sitting on my shelf there for a while, but now I'm finally going to sit down and give my thoughts about it. But that's Red Dead Revolver I'm going to review. And then I'm going to do a review of, let me get the, because I don't have the film, going back to the Fangoria thing that I did for my White Noise review. I'm going to do a review on Assault on Precinct 13, the remake with Ethan Hawke, Lawrence Fishburne. You guys will see my thoughts on that. Tell you guys what I think of that. But what's another thing I plan to review? I plan to review Far Cry. This is another game I wanted to talk about for a while. Gonna get to that. And this is one that I forgot to show in the update. This is a film that I picked up that I forgot to show in the update. Now I'm gonna show it now, just a quick little thing. But next review I'm gonna do is Ong Bak Die Warrior. Definitely gonna tell you guys what I think of that. And those are the three I have planned so far. Well, I should say so far. I got a lot more, but for the time that I have, just figured why not show what's coming. I'll give you guys my thoughts on those later, but I'll see you guys later. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of Trading Places. Do you guys like the film? Did you guys hate it? What's your favorite Eddie Murphy film so far? Or what's your worst Eddie Murphy film? Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.